Hi guys, welcome today to another episode of As You Explain. Today we have a very exciting topic, Rovik.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about something slightly sticky, but I think
Ooh.
a lot of Singaporeans have it on their minds, especially with a recent news article that came out about ESM Go. We're going to be talking about salaries today.
Oh, great. Yeah, salaries, money. I like to talk about
Yeah.
money. Yeah, salaries. Well, let's see. Where do we start? Salaries. Maybe we ask everyone a question since we are talking on the topic of ESM Go.
Right.
And of course about minister salaries. That's kind of a touchy subject nowadays.
Right.
But maybe let's ask everyone this first question. I'll ask this question again, but please, if you have a comment or something, please put it into the comment section so that we can answer your questions as well about today's topic. Today's topic about salaries. And our first question today will be, how much should the Prime Minister be paid? What do you think?
That's a very difficult question. I actually like the current number.
Okay.
If for comparison's sake, currently the number that's being put is 2.2 million
Okay.
annually.
Okay.
And
But what do you think the Prime Minister should be paid? Or maybe I shouldn't ask you. Maybe we should just leave it to the audience.
Yeah, let's
All right.
unfold this.
We want to find out. Okay, guys, if you leave a comment about this, please answer to specific numbers. What do you think our Prime Minister of Singapore should be paid physically in numbers? What is that number so that we can find out more? And of course, if you like what we have today, please like and share our video. That's very important, right?
Yeah.
Like and share. So, okay, before I begin, let me also share this entire thing so that people know what's going on my wall as well. Have you done that?
Oh, I'll do that too.
Okay.
Yeah, so for people who are listening in, we are currently on Apple Podcasts as well. So if you want to check us out on your commute or while you're at the gym, you can easily download what we're doing. And it's easy to find us anywhere that you listen to podcasts. So.
Okay, great. So, yeah. So, if you're listening in, guys, today's topic is about salaries, and we are going to dive right in. All right. Okay. So salaries. Okay, that's the first thing. All right. Before we begin on salaries, actually, there's a very important thing to know, which is salaries is actually one form of pay. If you didn't know, there are actually many different kinds of pay. Pays is, for example, you could have wages.
Okay.
Salaries is one.
Yeah, I mean, I just got my first job, and I know that I have a monthly salary. That's something I get. I get benefits. Is that considered pay as well?
I suppose, yeah, it's something that you are being rewarded for, remunerated for your effort and time.
Okay.
That's, I suppose, is a form of payment.
Right.
For what you've done. Benefits are a form of payment.
All right. Is insurance considered pay?
It is a form of benefit, so I suppose it's a form of pay.
Okay.
Yeah, benefit that to you. So you're being paid a certain value, right? And insurance is a value that you take home as well.
Right.
So you're being paid for that effort as well, or
Okay.
just because you belong to the company as well.
Right.
So, do you know the difference between salary and pay? Oh, sorry, salary and wages.
Okay, this I think I know. So is wage more of an hourly thing?
Okay.
And salaries are more of a long term, like either monthly or annual kind of payment, whereas a wage you just get paid at an hourly rate. So you're thinking more in like part time or temp worker kind of space, or even like the low income, like high labor kind of space.
Yeah, sure. So, of course, we have the magic Wikipedia or dictionary to help us out with this. So, a wage is a monetary compensation paid by employer to an employee in exchange for work done. And payment can be calculated as a fixed amount of each task completed. For example, an hourly or daily wage, which you just said, or based on the easily measured quantity of work done. So that is wage. Essentially, it's the amount of things you produce or the amount of time by the hour that you spend on that particular project or work.
So when we talk about payment in Singapore, I hear a lot of people talking about the wage of the median Singaporean. Is that accurate, or are we basically talking about two different things?
The wage, or I suppose it really I think in our time, it seems like wage and salary has been interchangeably used.
Right.
But if we were to be really really accurate about it, there's a difference between wage and salary.
Right.
So now that we know what wage is, salary is essentially, of course, once again, referencing it's a fixed amount of money or compensation paid to an employee by an employer in return for work performed.
Okay.
And salary is commonly paid in fixed intervals. So, for example, in the month of May, June,
Right.
July. So by the month, for example, monthly payments of 1/12 of the annual salary, for
Right.
example, and in each of these months. Now, the difference is that if you were to take a wage, an hourly wage, if you do an overtime, you will be paid for that overtime hours that you spend.
Okay. That sounds good.
Yeah, but if you're on a salary, chances are you might not actually be compensated for those amount of overtime because you're just allocated the interval in which you're working in that period.
Oh, so does that mean that as long as I'm getting paid a salary, I will be expected to put in overtime without, I'm expected, in fact, to put in some overtime if it's necessary?
I think it really depends on the organization that you work with. But essentially, a salary is something that you're working in a specific interval, like a month.
Okay.
Yeah, and in which your effort. Now, whether the work entails you to work overtime or less time, or maybe to complete a piece of work,
Right.
and if you can do it a lot faster and don't come to office, you're still paid a salary as well.
So I found something interesting actually. When I talk to my friends in the US, a lot of times when they talk about salaries, they give a lump number for the annual salary.
Yeah.
Whereas in Singapore, we always talk about it in terms of the monthly salary.
Mm-hmm.
I think I have a reason, but I
Okay, let's hear that. That's pretty interesting. And you know what? That actually crossed my mind a few times, but I never really asked this question. But
I think so. I think it's because of the way that we do bonuses in Singapore.
okay.
So in Singapore, we do a 13th month bonus.
Okay.
Right. And what happens is that we are basically given at the end, either halfway through a year or at the end of the year, we are basically announced by the CEO or whoever is in charge of determining bonuses that a certain amount is given based on performance or economic outlook. But in the US, that bonus is predetermined.
Okay.
So they don't actually vary the bonus too much, and it's kind of split up into your monthly pay.
Okay.
So you are given a lump sum as an indicator of how much you'll be paid in total, and that's kind of what people work with. They don't really think about it in a monthly sense.
I see. That's pretty interesting. I think culturally a bit different as well because of certain policies as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's pretty cool. I don't know, but I have a reflex of always looking at pay as a monthly number and never really an annual number.
Right.
Yeah. So, but I suppose, yeah, different cultural context. Yeah, you study in the US, definitely you have that insight as well.
Right, and I think that's probably a good prelude to this whole thing, because I think a lot of us assume that salaries and wages are objective conversations that the market should determine it. But the more I was doing research for this topic, I realized that it's a huge element of culture and society that is important to talk about. And I think if we don't talk about it in that context, we kind of lose sense of why this is an SG conversation, right? We're talking about SG explained.
Sure.
Right. So,
sure.
So
I think we'll definitely be talking about that later, about what exactly is going to be the considerations for determining somebody's salary, for example. So
right.
we'll be talking about that right now. But in the meantime, for those who are just joining in, and hi, I see a lot of people joining in today.
Very cool.
Yeah. So
hello.
Hi guys. So today we are talking about salaries today, and of course we have one important question you want to ask before we continue. And if you have the answer, please leave it in the comment section. Today's question is, how much do you think the Prime Minister of Singapore should be paid? So let me repeat that. How much do you think the Prime Minister of Singapore should be paid? And you need to give us a physical number. Please don't give us hypotheticals of what considerations there are. Give us what you think is that number going to be. Currently, our Prime Minister is drawing how much?
2.2 million.
2.2 million Sing dollars, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's his salary. So please leave in the comment section. Now let's continue. And then of course we have discussion about what wages are,
right?
What salary salary is, and essentially two very different things. Of course there are different kinds of pay as well. There's also commission.
Right.
For example, if you're working in a sales job, that's commission. There's piece rates, for example, for certain things that you produce. So there are little, for example, how many items do you produce, piece rates. Bonuses, profit sharing.
What's an industry where piece rates would be applicable?
Oh my, I'm not too sure. Maybe you can help me find that out
Sure.
as well. But in the
All right.
meantime, okay, good question. Definitely want to come back to that. Bonuses, profit sharing, merit pay, stock options are also another form of
And
pay.
that's huge in startups, especially because
Exactly.
where people don't really have the ability to pay
In cash.
comparable
Yeah.
upfront payment. Yeah, then stock options are a way of promising work with future outcomes.
Yeah, definitely. I don't really see that much in this part of the world. I mean, in Singapore, we don't really hear much about stock options in
Right.
startups. Most of the time, people are paid with a set form like a salary. Maybe they do, but I'm just not exposed to it. Right.
I found the answer for piece
Okay,
rates,
what's
by
piece
the way.
rate? Yeah.
So piece rates is basically where payment is not dependent on hours worked, but
Okay.
on quantity produced.
Right.
So, for example, if you were going to, for example, a lace maker, and you told her, I want 500 pieces of lace.
Okay.
Instead of charging you by the hour, she'll say, I'll charge you $2 per lace.
Yes.
So that's called piece work.
Oh, cool.
Piece rates.
Do you see that in Singapore?
I don't know. I think if you were
15 bowls of mee pok,
sure,
and you get paid $5. Is that how it works?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's probably
And maybe
because they don't really get a wage. No one's paying
Right.
them. They basically, they also consider entrepreneurs.
I see.
So
Okay.
so it's a very mixed bag. But I think the mentality works more if you're really thinking about independent suppliers for all this kind of stuff. Right.
Yeah.
Cool.
In fact, I think the last time I started this very small flower arrangement thing for Valentine's Day was
You did that?
yeah, it's a situational business.
Right.
I mean, Valentine's Day was coming, we could make a profit from flowers.
You're the true entrepreneur.
And I actually paid one of these this nice friend of mine
Right.
for every bouquet that she helped me to make. I'll give her, for example, money for that particular bouquet.
Yeah,
So,
so
that's a piece rate.
I think
yeah.
that's piece
yeah.
rate.
So okay, that's cool. Of course, you have other things like benefits. We talked about that, right? Dental insurance, medical, vacation, leaves, retirement. I think these are things that are forms of pay. Right?
Yeah, and I think a lot of us forget that is actually something that we get for the work that we put in. So it is actually tied to the amount of input that we put in, and a lot of people just take it as a privilege. They say this is something that the employer ought to give me. I don't know. I don't know if that's completely right. I think in some ways there are certain things that an employer ought to provide. Like for example, basic safety, and like for example, if you're commuting for the purpose of work. So if you're going from your office to a meeting, yeah, I wouldn't be doing that if not for work. So I should get covered for that. But insurance and vacation and leaves, yeah, these are things that are part of the employment package.
Right.
So I think that's another important thing.
Right. And of course, most recently, people have been paying others in exposure. I think that
I've gotten that. People have tried to pay me in exposure before.
Oh, cool. I want to hear that.
Yeah, so some of you guys may know that I used to basically be the front face of the Hidden Good for a while.
Okay.
And we did social experiments, and people would sometimes message us and be like, hey, we want to do this project. And we'd say, okay, cool. We don't really need a lot of money, but we have a certain cost that we need to cover. And people would be like, oh, but this is a charity. And the follow-up question would be, well, could you at least cover the cost? Right? At no profit, just cost. And then the exposure conversation happens.
I see.
It's always very difficult because there is this ethical burden that someone has to carry. And I think it's very inappropriate. But I actually think there's a lot of conversations about this, especially in the arts, creative arts. So for example, anyone who does graphic design, photography, any kind of performance arts, they struggle with this a lot. So
I suppose this is the why people are paying in exposure dollars is because maybe they don't really know the true value of that service or product that they are engaging in. I suppose.
I have developed the principle for myself, which I think I want to carry on forward. And that is, if I do care about something, I'm going to pay for it.
Okay.
Right. And regardless of whether that's a friend, and in fact, especially if that's a friend.
In exposure dollars?
No, in dollar dollars.
Oh, in dollar dollars.
In money. Right. And I think it's important because you want your friend to get paid for his or her work.
Right.
So you got to lead the way.
Okay, sure. Not paid in friendship, I suppose.
Friendship is a perk.
Okay, sure. And of course, in historical, there are where things where people work for 14 years just for payment and blessing to have the person's hand in marriage.
I think that's in the Bible somewhere.
Yeah, that's
right.
right. Yeah, exactly. Well, anyway, the list goes on. There are many ways of paying people.
Right.
And of course, today we're specifically covering about salaries. All right.
Right.
So let's talk about a little bit about the history of salaries. All right, and where actually this concept of salary is from.
Wasn't it always a thing?
Actually, no. I think historically, the idea of salaries and has a few things. Okay, number one is that it presupposes the existence of an organized employer. That's one.
Okay.
And number two is that it has to be regular enough basis to constitute a salary work. So these are the 2 points. Essentially, you need an organization of sorts to be able to say that I'm giving a salary, and then essentially you need to have a specific time frame in which that person is working on a regular interval.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's, I suppose, if you were to look at that, I would say that maybe from the first city or village or an organization that starts, you're looking that would be the premise and beginning.
You're going all the way to ancient history.
Of course. Okay. That's essentially the concept of salary. I mean, in the past, people could probably just snatch a cow or two and then just say, hey, this is the amount you're being paid for. Here goes a cow tie, for example. But if you're given a regular amount of work at a regular, consistent salary, that really determines something that is really consistent.
Right.
Kind of work.
What does the word salary actually mean? Does it mean anything?
Yeah, sure. Oh, good that you asked this. Actually, the word in Latin, the word for salary is salarium.
That's an actual
so
Latin word.
I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly.
Right.
If we have anybody with Latin majors, please don't.
You classics folk.
Well, the word salarium originally meant salt money, and I suppose from this
salt money.
Yeah, or rather, people believe that the money salary was from the word salarium, which meant salt money.
So were people getting paid in salt?
Yeah. So you have the terms like, are you worth worth one's salt? Is an example. Yeah. And of course, some mainstream sources disagree with that notion, and they say that it likely derives from this word called "gos solidus," which then, of course, translates to "Are you worth your weight in gold?"
Very interesting.
Yeah. So salary, I think, has been pegged to physical objects, for example, salt or gold, either way. But essentially, I think these are terms that have gone on, and now we are using as a regular word, like salary, for example. Right. So, I mean, a good question would be: are you worth your weight in salt, or are you worth your weight in gold?
I'm a bit biased. I'm probably gonna go gold.
Okay. Sure.
Because we have enough salt. Well, it's pretty salty by itself.
Oh, you think so? Okay. Great. More gold for roving. All right. I eat a lot, so I love salt. Yeah, I love salty stuff. Right. Okay. So, of course, in this context today, we're talking about the history of Singapore salaries, right? Because it's, after all, as you explained. But so let's have an idea of salaries in Singapore historically. Okay. And maybe what's that physical number that we experienced in the last maybe 20 years? Right. Okay. So in 1997, the average salary in Singapore was about $2,000 to $3,000.
So
that's an average.
So you use the word average. Okay. So I think it's important here because I've been reading a lot of articles and I've seen median, I've seen average, and I've seen all kinds of numbers being thrown around. Yep. So we should distinguish. So for people who know their basic statistics, you probably know where I'm getting at. But a median is basically the middle number. Right. So that means if you take population, if you take everyone in Singapore and you put them in a line, and you would take the person right in the middle, that's the median. His or her salary. Yeah. What's the average?
So average could be the fact that this guy may be a low wage earner and this guy could be earning like 15, 20, 30 times. And when you average it out, it might give you a number. Okay. But it might skew upwards because of, for example, that person really paid a lot. In another context, it could skew downwards because you have a larger pool of people who are paying a bit lower. Right. So an average is really the sum of all the numbers and not really about the population and what is the person in the middle earning. Okay. Yeah. So, but just to give you an idea, right? And I think these are data that we can pull or we can't pull from our current time right now. Right. But what we understand is that in 1997, the average salary in Singapore is between $2,000 to $3,000. That's how it is.
Okay.
Yeah. And guess what? In 2017, which is just last year, right? The average salary is actually between $5,000 to $6,000.
So that's around a 250%.
Well, you're fast. Okay.
Yeah, it's times 250%.
Wow,
So
yeah.
150% increase.
So in the span of 20 years, we have increased our salary by almost
150%.
yeah. That's pretty incredible, I would say. Of course, we would say that we need to factor in things like inflation, different different kinds of work or higher value kinds of work that we are getting. So shifts in maybe from laborers' work to much more higher thinking kind of work.
Right.
So these are things, but essentially this is the averages of Singapore salaries from the 20 years.
I'll say something though. I took a grab on my way to this chat.
Right.
And I mean, of course, I was talking to the Grab driver as I normally like to, and I wasn't surprised. Again, the conversation resorted to we're not getting paid enough in Singapore.
Oh, okay.
And it's funny because when I told people that I was doing this conversation, a lot of them were like, why even bother? The answer is simple. Everyone's not getting paid enough. $5,000 to $6,000 as the average. So you're basically saying that anyone, regardless of age, is getting paid an average of $5,000 to $6,000.
Yes.
What do you think? Is that enough? Is that how do we determine that?
I think this is really difficult question to answer, and it really is a complex question,
right? Because
it really determines what kind of lifestyle you want to go for, what actually are your basic needs, how many people do you have to feed at home. I think this conversation, this question really is something that is not easy to be answered in just one sentence.
Sure.
Yeah. But I feel if you say $5,000 to $6,000 is enough, if we were to compare mainly to people with the 5,000, 6,000 range, I suppose it'd be a good question to be asked is who are the bulk of these people? Where do they work within the 5,000, 6,000 range? What kind of lifestyles are they holding? And what kind of jobs are they holding?
Right.
Yeah. And that way we'll get an idea at least on the shape of how these people are in this specific band. Yeah. Is it really I suppose this question of we are not being paid enough really is a question of who is asking this question. Is it somebody that is below the average of $5,000, $6,000 a month? Is it really the people who are very well, not very well off, for example, or or it's in an impression that people may have. I think this is a really difficult question.
I think we have collected some numbers that may be very useful to go through.
Sure.
So we've done private sector, we've done civil sector, and really you've done the hard job of looking at the political sector.
All right.
So let's dive in.
Sure. Okay. But before we go in, earlier on we asked this question, and I asked people to leave comments in this in the comment section. Really, the first question is how much you think our Prime Minister should be earning in physical numbers. If you can give that in physical numbers, it would be really great. At least you have a point of discussion. I have one more question to ask after our Prime Minister, and that is this question. How much should a CEO of a charitable organization be paid?
So you're basically saying that a charitable organization, are you talking about a big one, like a huge nonprofit?
Sure, we could give an example. It could be like large charitable organizations and so on. Let's take the largest charitable organization in Singapore. How much do you think that CEO of that charitable organization should be paid?
Asking me?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, okay. I think he or she should be paid a comparable rate to the CEO of a similarly complex private organization.
So what is a similarly complex organization? Is it by the size of the people? Size of
I would say the kind of work
company?
That's necessary. Again, if I think to a personal anecdote, right? If I wanted to get paid fairly, I'd want to get paid the market rate for my skills.
Okay.
So because I'm bringing XYZ set of skills, those skills are in demand.
Sure.
And whatever the market is paying for that, I want to get paid that no matter where I go. I think to some extent the context does matter. So if it's a charitable organization, I think I can understand a partial cut. And I think I'll be willing to take that. Mainly because if I was to choose to work for a charitable organization, I am choosing to work for a charitable organization.
Right. And I suppose the question would be, there's such a large spectrum of CEO pay, which we'll cover later.
Right.
Which cut will you be taking? Are we taking 15 million, 20% cut from a CEO that earns 15 million,
Right.
or really a CEO that earns 600,000 yearly and take a 20% cut? What are we talking about?
Right. I don't know.
Right. I think it's going to be quite an interesting discussion.
Right.
But really, essentially, I mean, this is a question posed to our viewers today: is how much do you think a CEO of a charitable organization be paid in physical numbers? What do you think that number? Let's take, contextually, the largest charitable organization in Singapore, which I don't know.
Right.
But maybe we can cover that in the next episode.
Sure.
Charitable organization.
Singapore's charity scene.
Yeah. But what do you think will be that number that we're working with for the largest charitable organization and the CEO that's working in it?
Right.
Right. Cool. But let's go on and let's talk about what are the most well-paid people in Singapore.
Okay.
Shall we?
I want to know. I want to know.
So here we go. So the salaries of notable positions in Singapore from I think this is my recruitment agency called Michael Page that I took offline. So it says that with a minimum requirement of 10 to 15 years of relevant experience, okay, we need the later context here, right?
Sure.
Okay.
So these are people who know their stuff.
You know that stuff. Okay.
Okay.
A legal counsel, right, that works in a practice, I suppose a legal practice, right,
Okay.
will earn on average about 500,000 per year.
So $500,000 a year.
Yes, $500,000 a year. That's legal counsel.
That's around 40
Plus grand a month.
a month. That's a good amount.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
And I'd expect 10 to 15 years. So I'm 25 right now. 15 years time, I'll be 40. I'd want to be paid that much.
What are you going to do with 40 grand a month?
Hopefully by that point, getting my kids into college.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's going to pay for just that 1 month of salary is just going to pay for them for that year already.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just spitballing. I haven't thought about this, really. You put me on the spot.
No worries. Okay, let's go on to that. Something else which is also just as also really high pay is a CFO or finance director in Singapore. A CFO and finance director in Singapore is going to be averaging about 315,000 to 430,000 per year.
Okay.
I mean, less than the legal counsel, but still.
I know that a CFO probably has a tough job, especially with a complex financial system.
Yeah.
That's a lot of, they deserve that, I would say.
Right. Yeah, definitely. But that's 315,000 to 430,000.
Right.
Once again, a very, very high number for someone in the to be a CFO or finance director.
Right.
This is an average, right?
Seems reasonable.
Yeah. So a general manager or a managing director, not necessarily the top man in the for example, MNC,
upper middle management.
Upper middle management. He could be the managing director of a country or geography.
Right.
He is going to take home, for example, and predominantly in the healthcare and life sciences areas, is going to take home about 390,000 per year.
He or she, Willie.
He or she. Sorry, I'm just gonna just for our viewers, he or she. I'm just going to use it interchangeably. I mean the same.
Right. All right.
All right. He or she is going to take away about $390,000 per year.
Yeah.
If you're an MD of a healthcare and life sciences.
Wow.
MNC. All right. And of course, moving on to this very, very highly specific area called quality director in the engineering and manufacturing area, or for example, semiconductors.
So that you basically are in charge of making sure that anything that comes out, you are responsible for the quality. So if it fails, it's kind of on you.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's a lot of pressure.
Of course. If that biscuit is not going to come out from that factory, you're just going to get in trouble.
Oh, wow.
Semicon, aerospace, the chemical sector, they're going to average about 315,000 per year. Still in the 300,000 range. All right, we're just going to go through this. Marketing directors will average about 220 to 300,000. Executive directors for corporate governance is going to do about 300,000 average per year.
Right.
In-house legal counsel, okay, not the legal counsel in the practice, but an in-house legal counsel in the company is going to do about 300,000 average per year. The head of medical affairs, right, clinical research is 290,000. Engineering director for R&D and engineering is also about 200 to 275,000. Wow, these are really high-paying jobs.
Yeah, and I'm sensing a pattern here, right? I'm seeing by virtue of design, they all have lots of experience.
Mm.
So they have the institutional knowledge or some kind of professional knowledge.
Yeah, that's right.
They are managing very difficult jobs. Like I'm looking at these jobs and you're responsible for a lot of stuff. You are basically, if you screw up, you're going to be,
Oh man.
you're going to be really, really on the line.
Yeah.
And it looks for some of these things, you're managing people. And so
Yeah.
I think that's something
Definitely.
I underappreciate a lot. Managing people is hard.
Yeah, it is.
It's worth it, but it's hard. And a lot of people don't really understand how much work it takes to be a good manager.
Most definitely. In fact, one of the other things that we'll be talking about later is about the fact that why do managers get paid more than individual contributors? Why is it that as we go up in the organization, managers, right?
Right.
Managers get paid more.
Yeah.
Why is it that individual contributors are not paid more? Or is this really not true?
Are you asking me, or are we going to go into it
We're
later?
going to go into that
Okay.
later.
I have an answer, but we'll go into it later.
Okay. But before that, let's talk about something else, which is the average CEO. We notice that we didn't talk about CEOs in the most notable positions.
Right.
Now we're going to be talking about the CEOs in the world, all right?
Oh, globally.
Globally, all right?
Okay.
Globally.
Do we have a Singapore list as well?
Yeah, we do have.
Okay.
Okay. So according to CNBC, which I pulled off from the net as well,
Sure.
the average CEO pay in 2016 of the top 250 US firms earned on average about 15.6 million a year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So if you are
And this is US dollars.
This is US dollars.
Okay.
Right? So if you are a CEO in the top 250 company in the US, you're going to do about 15 million a year.
Wow.
And this, I'm not sure whether there are other things like
so-
stock equity and stuff
Yeah,
like this.
I think that was my question. How much of that 15 million?
Okay, what I understand is this is their salary.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not even talking about, for example, stock options or stock preferences or preference shares.
Wow.
We're not talking about any of these things. We're just talking about salary alone.
Okay.
Yeah, 15.6 million on average per year. Okay. So let's just look at, for example, some of the pays the top CEOs in the world are paid. All right.
Right.
Okay. So in the US, for example, so for example, the CEO of Oracle is paid 41.1 million a year.
That's
Just
the
a
number.
salary.
That's the number one.
That's the number one. All right, or at least that's the number one here that I have on this list. Okay?
Right.
Yeah, but these are some of the top people. Okay.
Right.
You have from Activision Blizzard, if you play Warcraft, right, or you play StarCraft,
right.
for example,
Right.
he's taking home
I've
about
dabbled.
yeah. Bobby Kotick is taking about $33.1 million a year.
Yeah, and people are readily giving him that money.
Exactly. All right. Oh, something familiar. Hewlett Packard Enterprise,
Right.
32.9 million.
Oh,
Meg
wow.
Whitman.
She left recently.
I think so, but she's still back.
Right.
32.9 million.
Right.
You have Ginny from IBM. She took home 32.3 million as well.
Wow.
Yeah. You have Adobe, CEO of Adobe, right? Shantanu, who took 20 million. Brian from Intel took 19.1 million. And of course, Satya from Microsoft took about 17.7. So you get the idea. Top CEOs are taking multi-million dollar kind of salaries.
How do those numbers compare to Singapore?
Okay, let's take a look. All right. According to Asia One, which we just picked up, the median total pay for CEOs at Singapore listed companies has remained a constant at 625,000.
So the median or the average for global is 15.6.
Yeah.
And you're saying in Singapore it's 625,000.
But that's the median.
And this is also Singapore dollars. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of comparisons.
Exactly. Yeah. So of course, this is a mixture of large, medium, and small corporations and companies, right?
Okay.
Right. So we're talking about even small companies. So it could be, for example, a small startup
Right.
pay all the way on to the top of the top man in the listed companies in Singapore, for example.
Right.
So maybe we should look at this a bit more contextually.
Okay.
Okay. So let's compare large size companies, for example,
Sure.
right? So CEOs in Singapore at large size companies were paid a median total remuneration of approximately 3.41 million per annum.
Singapore dollars.
Yeah, Singapore dollars.
Okay.
So if you are a CEO, and chances are in a Singapore listed company, you are going to be paid about $3.41 million on average.
That's a good amount.
Yeah, and that's pretty good. Now, if you're in a medium-sized company, and you're a CEO there, you'll probably be paid about 1.25 million per annum, still in the million range per year.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. What did we say was our prime minister's pay again?
2.2.
2.2 million. So he's in between the CEO, the average CEO pay of a large organization and the CEO of a medium-sized company.
Okay.
It's between there.
Yeah.
Right. So that's
you would say that
stuff.
Singapore is probably bigger than a large size company.
Of course,
the Singapore
definitely.
government. Yeah.
And he is in between these numbers. So I guess it's a food for thought to consider.
Right.
Like, these are of course the physical numbers that we have working here.
Right.
And of course, let's talk since we're talking about commercial companies. Let's talk about some a company that's really been in the news recently as well and been in the news for the longest time. Let's talk about SMRT.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Let's look at SMRT.
You know what, Willie? I think we should do a whole episode on SMRT.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's completely worth it.
Oh, definitely.
It'll be very interesting.
Okay, yeah. Let's totally do transportation, efficiency of transportation. Okay, but for another day. All right. Let's look at SMRT and the top men in the SMRT, okay?
Sure.
So SMRT is it considered a large corporation or a medium-sized corporation? I think its turnover in 2015 was about $1.23 billion. So it's $1 billion company.
It says million here.
1,235
million.
million.
Oh, wow.
So it's a $1.23 billion company.
Wow.
Right? And that's SMRT. So I believe that it belongs to the large corporations size.
Right. Of course.
Okay. At $1 billion company. And guess what? The CEO of SMRT reported in 2014 that his salary was $2.25 million. He belongs to a large corporation.
Right.
And he takes home $2.25 million.
Right.
And against our large size companies on average of about 3.4 million, he's actually below the average of most large companies in Singapore.
You know what I'm seeing here? That Singapore actually has a huge spectrum of pays and salaries that is going on.
Of course. And I'll just say that really sometimes just looking at the numbers is really mind-boggling. And if we really try to benchmark where we are, this is where we are right now.
Right.
That, for example, the CEO of SMRT is actually 2.25 million compared to the 3.41 million that we're looking at for averages for large corporations. Very interestingly, I think this is something worth noting as well. But of course, once again, still in the millions.
Right. Once you hit a million, I think you're in a very different conversation.
Of course, everybody is hearing us talk about $1 million CEOs and pays that are really in 300,000 a year. Well, where are we getting with this, right? But of course, if you're not, I'm going to tell you what are the industries in Singapore to be in that pay you the most. Okay. So there are actually 5.
Right.
And I think most people would understand this because probably our parents would have drilled us to enter these industries, and they're actually right. Number 1 in the Singapore industry of the highest paying salaries is accounting.
Okay.
All right.
That makes sense.
Yeah, do numbers.
Right.
I know a lot of people in the media industry, which I'm from, really hate numbers.
It's also probably a job that not many people want to do unless they really like it.
Really love numbers, right? Yeah. So you have no choice but to do numbers. Okay. But who are we judging? Number 2.
No one. We're judging no one.
Yeah. Banking and finance.
Okay.
It's obvious,
that
right?
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So banking and finance, we have all the big finance companies in Singapore. They are the next one with the highest paying salaries. Okay. Of course, number 3, also recently in the news, is healthcare and life sciences.
So does this include doctors?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. Medical directors, people in the healthcare industry.
Okay.
They are really paid a lot as well. Healthcare and life sciences.
That I am okay with. They should get paid.
And of course, number 4 is information technology.
Right.
So I suppose it's your Google, your Facebook, your Adobe, your IBMs.
Right. They're driving the most growth right now.
So information technology, people are really paid a lot. So you should go into the information IT industry, for example. And of course, the last one is legal. So lawyers, I suppose, legal counsel, Class X, for example, they are actually taking a lot in as well. So these are the 5. Let me repeat: accounting, banking and finance, healthcare and life sciences, information technology, and legal are the top 5 industries with the highest paying salaries.
Really, we're not none of these.
I know. Yeah. Boo-hoo. But good to know. Good to know. All right. Good to know. Maybe we might want to do a career switch next time.
Sure.
We shall see.
Now we know.
Now we know. Oh no. What did I study? Okay, so these essentially are the highest paying salaries in Singapore. Let's talk about something else, which is about pay structures.
What is a pay structure?
Okay, so for example, how are pays being distributed and how are pays being determined within an organization?
Okay.
For example, so you have these four different structures that actually determine your salary
Oh wow.
in organization. So one is
I did not know that there was a structure. Okay.
yeah. So you have things like, which is I think once you hear it, you will understand is pay bands.
Okay.
So do you belong in a specific band?
Right.
And then therefore, if you belong in a specific band, therefore you'll be given more pay or less pay.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's
logical.
Yeah, that's logical, right?
Right.
So I think it's administratively it's much easier to also distribute and remunerate as well and to judge a person as well.
Okay.
So that's pay bands. You have something called a traditional structure.
Okay.
So essentially, if you go higher up in the organization, you get paid more. So it's a very hierarchy based kind of a system, very traditional.
Okay.
I think it exists in a lot of companies even till today.
Right.
Traditional structures. You have another thing called pay for performance.
Right.
So if you did really well, and you did really, really, really well, chances are you might be paid more than some people in the organization. But of course, there are things in the pay for performance structure that gets a bit problematic. For example, we call it fair managerial control. Will your manager judge you correctly enough for you to be paid for that level of performance that you executed?
Right, because sometimes performance is very difficult to
Yeah,
measure.
it's really, really subjective, right?
Right.
Yeah, so once again, a very difficult to administer kind of structure is pay for performance, unfortunately. Right. You have things like broad banding structure. So, for example, if you belong in general support, analysis department, or law enforcement, or sciences, essentially these particular areas of work or industries will determine your pay.
How is that different from like just market rates?
So, for example, if you work in a charitable organization versus if you work in banking and finance, should you be paid the same?
Probably not.
Probably not, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, there is this notion of what a charitable organization, how they should be paying, or maybe if you're in social services, should you be paid the same way as how you're paying in legal, for example?
Mm-hmm.
Once again,
those are tricky questions.
Yeah,
though.
Exactly.
Okay.
But I suppose without going into the ethical or essentially the logical position of why these were determined to the groups that they are, these are how they have already been banded.
Right.
So this is called broad banding structures.
Okay.
Right. So we have these four different things that actually determine your pay.
Right.
So if you are in the good side of history or you're in the good side of the band, then of course you'll be paid more. If you're on the negative side of the band, then unfortunately, or it could be the fact that you're just really right in the middle of the band. Interesting, right? So, of course, the number one thing I think most people will be asking is, we talk about minister salaries, we talk about notable salaries, but how do we know? How do we determine that number goes with this particular role? How do we do that?
So, I mean, I'm thinking right off the top of my head, you have skills that you invested in. So, for example, if you want to be a lawyer, you have to put in the investment to law school, into basically going into internships and all this kind of stuff. So you kind of get rewarded for that input into yourself and into your professional knowledge.
But how do you think an organization is looking at you?
In terms of
how much you should be paid, even though you made all this effort for yourself, would you be paid exactly what you think you'll be paid?
I hope so.
So essentially, there are many things that determines pay. For example, you study this, the pestle analysis, right?
Oh wow, I love this in management school. I didn't want to touch this again.
Yeah. So of course, pestle analysis talks about a few key areas. It's 6 key areas, which is what determines pay. It's political situation of a country, the economic conditions of the country, the social dynamics of that particular society, the technological availability, the legal framework that they have, and the environmental aspects as well. So these are the 6 things that actually go into determining your pay. Not just the state of the company or the financial health of a country, but exactly what is the state of somebody's salary. It goes really down to that level as well. And really, how salaries are being determined after you take this pestle framework essentially is, for example, the organization's reputation,
Okay.
which determines, for example, the ease of attracting talent, will determine your pay. If, for example, if you work for Google or you work for a very reputable company, right? People want to join your business.
Right.
You want to join your company. Let's say, oh, I get to work in Google, but you have to take a 50% pay cut.
Okay.
Some people will say, no, you know what? I'm gonna jump on it. It's a once in a lifetime. I want to try.
Okay.
Or something like that. So that, in some sense, is the brand equity or really the organization's reputation that could determine salaries as well.
Sure.
That's one aspect.
That makes sense.
Of course, the popular notion is market, which is, for example, supply and demand. We've learned that in economics, right?
Right.
So if we have a lot of people in engineering and there are not enough engineering jobs, then of course prices for engineers will get depressed.
And I think this is what most people think about when you think of salaries.
Yes.
That it's purely on supply and demand.
Yeah, of course.
Right.
So if there's, for example, a lack of what I understand is there's a lack of computer developers,
Right.
and that's where we know that developers are high in demand because there's a lack of it, and then really their salaries go up because different companies really want to take more developers. They are really competing with other companies for talent in this area. Then what we see is salaries will go up in those areas.
Okay.
So supply and demand is really a crucial factor for determining salaries as well.
Sure.
Of course, your experience and your education, whether you're over or underqualified for a role,
That's
will determine. That's
straightforward.
That's something already. Your performance, as an individual performance, even the company's performance also determines salary.
Okay.
Yeah. So you could have put in effort, but the company didn't do well. Your salary you might not get a raise,
Right.
or they may not include more individuals in the company.
Sure.
So, for example, performance is a very key factor as well. And of course, cost of living. So something that what is the cost for living in this place? How much does it cost to rent a house? I think this is quite popular in the US, for example. You need to factor in when you receive your pay whether you can actually make ends meet for your rental.
Right. There's basically a baseline.
Yep.
That they kind of try to hit, so that as long as anything above that is going to be like a perk for the work that you do.
Exactly.
But they don't want to they want to make sure that you don't like suffer.
Exactly. So cost of living is something that actually also determines salaries.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool. But all of these are essentially within the framework of the pestle analysis.
Okay.
Right. Definitely the.
Is this something you do a lot, Willie? You just pestle everything?
I try to.
Oh wow.
Such a boring life. So the political framework, for example, if for example the country is going towards a specific direction or emphasis to a specific kind of occupation,
right,
then of course you're going to see salaries going in a specific area.
Okay.
Like for example, if the country is going to war,
yeah, you're gonna want to adjust your pay.
Exactly, and
Okay.
then you will then account for example, military men. You want to attract more people in the military, or you want people in the arms production. Then of course that's going to happen. And then of course economic measures, social dynamics.
Right.
Right.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
All of this makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. So this is essentially how salaries are determined
Right.
in our country,
And I
in
guess
Singapore
yeah,
as well.
yeah, that definitely makes sense, especially in Singapore, where you kind of think of some of the key conversations that are happening. A lot of them tend to rotate around these things.
Definitely. All right, let me just say, we got a few people say hello, and I'm going to just reply hello.
Hey, guys.
Hey guys. Thanks for joining us. We will get on to even more interesting things.
Okay. We're going to go to the juicy stuff now.
But I realized something. Hey guys, if you think that you have a number, I think everybody's a little shy today.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to put down what they feel is the prime minister's pay.
Right.
Yeah.
It's very controversial, and I'll give it this, right? In Singapore, if you're gonna make a statement, you kind of want to stand by it.
Yeah.
And so, and a lot of stuff that we're going to be talking about, we're talking about stuff that's already online.
Exactly.
So we're basically taking information from different sites, and we're kind of just aggregating it because it's a lot of stuff.
Of course, definitely.
So we get it, but don't feel shy. Definitely put out the number if you so that we can know what people are thinking about.
Yeah, what people are thinking. Yeah. Okay, but let me just throw something even more confusing into the mix for everyone.
Okay.
All right. How about this question? How much do you think a religious leader in a top religious organization in Singapore should be paid?
Willie, you're going really into
All right,
sticky
guys,
territory.
of course. How much do you think a top religious leader in the top religious organization in Singapore should be paid?
So, okay, we've talked about the Prime Minister's pay. We've talked about the CEO of
charitable organization.
right, and now you're saying a religious leader's pay.
Yeah.
I sense a trend over here. Are you basically trying to compare work that has some kind of humanitarian or public service angle to it with each other?
Well, I think firstly, foremost is we have so much information on the commercial sector.
Right.
We know how much a CEO is paid.
Right.
It's readily available online. But really, we don't really exactly see things like, for example, charitable organizations CEO pay.
Right.
I suppose you can obtain that.
Right.
You don't know a religious leader's pay, for example.
Right.
And what exactly is that level that he should be paid for the value of his work?
Yeah.
Right. It's a really interesting question, and I think that if, for example, if all of us would try to answer it, maybe we get a better insight, for example, of what a pay of a prime minister, which we believe is a calling, right?
Right.
Or pay of a minister in a religious organization, or any of these organizations would actually give us clarity to how we should determine pay for different people. But of course, in the commercial sector, we've talked about how pays have been determined. So it's pretty interesting. Let me talk about, for example, something that, since we're on the topic of pay, right?
Sure.
And it's quite close to some Singaporeans' heart, is foreign staff pay. Okay. Foreigners coming into our country, and how much are they paid?
Right, because I think one of the big conversations is that people say that foreign workers take our jobs.
Yeah.
And they basically take the income that we would have otherwise gotten.
Sure.
I personally don't believe this too much because my own understanding, based on what I'm reading, is that a lot of these jobs are jobs that Singaporeans are not taking anyway. But what do you have for this?
Well, once again, I think this is a really multi-level dynamic question.
Okay.
Of course, there's definitely jobs in which Singaporeans are either not suited or do not prefer to do. Right. And there are also jobs in which that there are not enough Singaporeans to fill. Right. So we need more probably foreigners to also take out that work.
Right. I'm pretty sure, I'll caveat my statement. I'm pretty sure it's a bit more nuanced than what I just said. But there's probably more to it. And I think we may need a whole episode for that.
Of course, yeah. But let me talk about very simply how the government administers the different kinds of foreigners for entering the country and what kind of pay they're actually receiving. Okay. So we get a better understanding. Sure. Of course, let's talk about the very, very first of all, I think high up in the hierarchy of pay for foreigners is the employment pass. Okay. And if you, for those
employment pass is for professionals.
For professionals, yeah. Okay. So of course you need to have a minimum of a degree or specific kind of role they've really played in an organization already. Okay. And essentially, for foreign professionals, managers and executives, candidates need to earn at least $3,600 a month and have acceptable qualifications like a degree, for example. Okay. So if you do not, for example, if the company doesn't pay you more than $3,600 or more, chances are they will not be given an employment pass. Okay. So you can't come to Singapore. You can't come to Singapore if you want to use an employment pass. Wow. So employment pass really is for higher level foreigners from coming in. So for example, if you have a friend who says, hey, who's a foreign friend who for example says, I have an employment pass, you go like, you're earning more than $3,600. Right. Yeah. So this one, way, you know. You don't have to tell your friend, but you already know that's probably the pay. All right. Of course, there are even higher levels to this. One is called the PEP, is after the EP, which is called the Personalized Employment Pass, which offers greater flexibility than employment pass, and the employment pass holder is earning a fixed fee monthly salary at least $12,000. Oh wow! Yeah, and if you're overseas foreign professional earning a fixed monthly salary, it must be at least $18,000. And I assume that you get more flexibility and more perks with a PEP. Of course. Okay. Of course, these are very high level positions, or rather higher level positions. And of course, it's like an upgrade to the employment pass, which is called the PEP. Right. So we talk about this band. This is the $3,600 band, the professional band and above. Right. Now let's talk about something right in the middle. Okay. Okay. Now let's talk about something called the S Pass. All right. I've heard of this. Yeah. Right. This is not for professional workers. Yeah. And
is there a minimum pay that you have to be hitting
Yes.
for this? Okay.
So there is a minimum requirement. So to qualify for the S pass, you need to have minimally a diploma of sorts,
Okay.
an equivalent of
Okay.
diploma. Right. For mid-level skilled staff, like in the S pass, candidates need to earn at least $2,200 a month and meet the assessment criteria.
Okay. So they're still getting paid pretty decently. I would say comparable to most Singaporeans.
But there's a catch.
Okay.
There is a levy placed on the employer.
Oh wow.
If they were to have somebody in the S pass range.
Oh wow.
So the S pass levy could range from a few $100s all the way up to maybe close to $1,000, maybe sometimes.
So is the goal?
Don't get me right, but it's a few $100s.
Is the goal to incentivize employment of Singaporeans then?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. But of course, if this particular skill set is really a rarity, I suppose and a business will really want to hire this. If not, it's not economically viable simply because you have to then pay the levy and pay somebody $2,200.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Of course, there's one more band, which is below the S Pass, which is you earn less than $2,200.
Is this the work permit?
This is the work permit.
Okay.
For
this I've heard about.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you earn $2,200 and less, you
Right.
of course you're a semi-skilled foreign worker in probably in construction, manufacturing, marine shipyard, process or service sector. You can apply for the work permit
Right.
area. And of course, I think there's some things that the company needs to also have. For example, I think there's a mandatory insurance that needs to be paid out
Okay.
to people within the work permit sector as well. So
there's a lot of things going on.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
And of course, I think this is to really classify the kinds of work and salaries
Right.
that are in different bands and how they're actually being administered for
Yeah.
foreigners coming to the country.
What I'm seeing so far is that the Singapore employment state,
Yep.
right? The landscape, it's pretty much planned a lot, right? There's a lot of people who are thinking about exactly what are the kind of incomes that we want people to be earning,
Right.
and what are the signals that are being sent. with
Right.
that. Okay, that is very interesting.
We've got an interesting comment from Tom Lee, and Tom was saying religious leaders should earn about 10 to 15,000 a month
Okay,
for a car, a modest
so that's
home.
around 180,000 a year.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Travel expenses, personal charitable donation savings. So this is Tom's suggestion that religious leaders should maybe exist in the $10,000, $15,000 range.
Okay.
What do you think?
Yeah, that makes sense if you are talking about someone who
He's the top guy
right
in a religious
But if you have a
organization.
family, right? If you have a family, again, I go back to, I think my primary, and this is me as an individual, my primary determinant is what you're talking about performance, right? If I am doing the kind of work that can be matched to someone who is working in a big complex organization,
Yeah.
And that level of scale, then I kind of expect a comparable pay.
So you believe that a religious leader could be even paid more simply because the organization could be larger?
Oh, for a religious leader, that's tricky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So I suppose these questions, but of course, we would love to hear your comments. Please leave your comments in the comment section. We really want to hear what your views are on religious leaders, CEO of charitable organizations, and of course, our dear Prime Minister, and how much they should be paid.
Right.
All right. Let's move on and let's take a look at some things. All right. Oh yes, about passes. All right, and of course, different areas.
Right.
Something that maybe might be interesting for your friends coming here to Singapore and who are still studying.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have things
let me
like
hear about this.
the work holiday pass. Have you heard of that?
No.
Okay, it's the
Is it a pass to be on holiday?
Oh well, it's for students and graduates aged 18 to 25 who want to work and holiday in Singapore for 6 months.
Work and holiday.
Work and holiday.
As if holiday is an activity.
I'm not sure how you're gonna work and okay, maybe you can do that, right?
Sure.
If you work for fun, then I guess it's a holiday.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think if you're a foreigner who wants to come to Singapore, that can be done. There seems to be a special arrangement in Australia.
Right.
There's this work holiday pass for Australian students and graduates aged between 18 to 30 who want to work and holiday in Singapore for 1 year.
I suspect that there's a reciprocal program in Australia.
I think so
That
too.
Probably makes sense.
I think so too.
Yeah.
So if you have friends who want to work here on a holiday, and of course you meet the criteria, you're not older than 25,
Right.
not younger than 18,
Right.
and of course you can come here for work holiday.
Very cool.
Very cool. All right, that's cool. I'm sure there are also a lot of other passes that we can talk about, but really today is the topic about salaries.
Right.
So, and we really want to know, for example, foreign salaries as well, and where they actually exist. So
Right.
these are also the areas.
So we've talked about private sector.
Yes.
We've talked about foreign workers and passes for people who are coming from overseas.
Yeah.
I think let's go into the juicy part of this. I know that you've done the work on political, but I've kind of taken a look at the civil sector.
Okay.
And it's very interesting. So the civil sector, if people don't know, is basically the part of the government that basically works in the ministries and the stat boards, and their job is to make government work.
Okay.
Right.
Fair.
And so there's of course the sense of duty, the sense of like these people are serving Singapore, but of course there's pay. People need to get paid. So it's important to talk about how exactly people in the civil sector get paid.
Sure.
So I've done my research.
Okay.
And I have stuff from both the public service division and the government, as well as from neutral sites, or I hope neutral sites like salary.sg and stuff.
Okay.
So the key principle for civil servant salaries is being market competitive.
Okay.
So this is something that we've seen a lot, right? We want to make sure that people are getting paid according to what the market is. And the key reason for that is because they want people to choose to enter the civil service and not feel like they're making too much of a sacrifice.
Okay.
Right.
Fair.
And again, it goes back to this idea of work, right? Because I'm doing the kind of work that deserves this amount of pay, they should be paying that in the public sector as well, to some degree. So similar abilities and responsibilities. The key thing though is that the civil sector's pay is not completely stable, or it's not static, right? So you have a base market competitive salary, and then you have what is called performance-based pay. So what happens is that there is a part of your pay that is linked to performance, so that people within the civil service are motivated to hit either organizational goals. So if you work in a stat board or a ministry, you kind of have certain goals that you want to hit, and bonuses and increments are tied to your performance.
Okay, cool.
So if you join the civil service, you don't have a fixed starting salary.
You don't? Okay.
You don't. So there are pay grades. And so this is something I'll talk about later. But more or less, your starting salaries are based on 4 key factors. The prevailing labor market. So this is the demand and supply kind of thing. The demands of the job. So exactly what are the skills you're bringing to the table. Yeah. Right. The caliber of the person. So for example, if I'm coming in with 20 years of experience, that kind of deserves a payment, or rather a benefit for the knowledge I'm bringing
and experience. Okay,
right. And so we've talked about this with your fancy pestle stuff, and then finally there is a component of your annual salary that is made up of all this performance-based stuff. So you have a couple of interesting things, right? So you have a performance bonus. So like I said, this is tied to both your organizational work as well as the whole work of the government. Okay. There is a merit increment. So you actually get paid more. It's kind of like a pay increase based on the performance of yourself. Okay. So if you do really well that year, you actually are up for a merit increment. Okay. There's also an annual variable component. All right. And so that is
like bonuses.
That is a bonus that is not necessarily tied to your organization's performance. That is tied to the whole public service. If the economy does well, and the public service is in good standing.
So it's market determined. Okay.
Right. So it kind of incentivizes the whole of government to actually think about what they're doing. Okay. Right. And to kind of play towards a team effort. And then and those factors kind of all play towards your salary within the civil service. I see. So it's very interesting because a lot of people, they complain that the civil service salary, and this is what I've seen on forums. It's been interesting exploring hardware zone online. But a lot of people complain that the pay within the private sector and the civil sector, you have no influence over them. But I think the key thing to note is that in the civil service, it is pretty much broken down into variable components that you do have a role in influencing. So there's an upside if you do better.
Sure. So let's get this straight. So the civil sector salary is determined by, of course, your monthly salary. Civil service sector is determined by your monthly salary. You have a performance bonus, you have a chance of a merit increment.
Yes.
So that's just an increment. You have an AVC or annual variable component,
Right.
which is tied to the market.
Right.
You have other annual bonuses,
Right.
which not sure what other annual bonuses are.
Right.
It could be special things that the country has done.
There's space for it.
That space, okay.
Right. And it's important because Singapore is one of the few countries in the world where you have that many civil servants. So there's one Singapore civil servant for every 66.8 Singaporeans.
Oh, okay.
Actually, I'm not sure if it's Singaporeans or just people, right?
I see.
So each civil servant is serving an average of 67 people in the country.
I see. So for every 67 person that I randomly sample from and talk to at an MRT, chances are they'll be in the civil sector.
Right.
Civil service
and
sector.
that's more than the UK. That's more than Indonesia.
Okay.
Indonesia has a lot of people,
Yeah.
but it is fewer than Malaysia and Japan. So in Japan, it's one civil servant for 28 people.
Okay. Wow.
So
they really need their government.
Right.
Okay.
So it's very interesting. There's another part about civil service pay that's very controversial, or rather, it's a mixed bag. But people talk about CEP.
Okay.
So what CEP is your current estimated potential.
Okay.
And so
wow. Okay.
what that means is that when you join the civil service, they kind of give you an indication of where they expect you to hit at the end of your career.
And at the end of the career, they mean, is that age?
So basically your final destination that the public service division is trying to push you to.
Okay.
So for example, some people who perform well and show potential for leadership, they are given more opportunities to join development programs, and they're kind of put on a track towards higher positions.
I see.
There is a bit of a conversation about whether scholars, government scholars, get put on these positions. So I did some digging, and according to Minister Teo Chee Hean, it's not. So everyone, once they join the civil service, they're put on the same track, and your CP is kind of determined for, let's say you are a regular civil servant, and I'm a scholar who has had that scholarship. The moment we join, our CP is evaluated in the same way. So based on our leadership potential, based on the kind of qualifications we have and all this kind of stuff. They have three main qualities that they evaluate you by: analytical and intellectual capacity, influence and collaboration, and motivation for excellence.
Right.
So it's not based on your starting educational qualification. So that used to be something.
I see.
Back in the day, but they've changed it to these three things, and the whole goal is to, again, reward merit, reward people who actually put in the work and who actually play.
So are we saying that nowadays scholars aren't to vie for example, a perm secretary position? A scholar or a non-scholar has equal opportunities to vie for that position? So
for most jobs. Okay. So I think there's places where they still scholars do have some advantage. So for example, within MINDEF, right? And I think the goal is because when they got that scholarship, it was very specifically because they knew that they were getting fast-tracked. I think also some scholars, the moment they get a scholarship, they are put on what is called a public service leadership program. Okay. So some scholars, they are not put on that program. They just get a scholarship and they come back and they serve their bond. But some scholars, they, by virtue of getting that scholarship, they're automatically enrolled in that program.
I see. So some scholars may choose not to be fast-tracked and some scholars would be fast-tracked?
I don't know if there's a choice.
Okay.
But yes, there's a possibility.
And some ministries will, of course, fast-track you regardless.
Right.
And then some ministries would still consider what exactly should be done. But essentially, the fast tracking option is open to a scholar.
Yes, yes. So the civil service employs around 6.5% of the workforce in Singapore, and there are basically pay grades that people can fall into.
Okay.
So the lowest level is what is called MX13.
MX13.
And that's basically...
That sounds like a tank.
Right. It was a bit hard reading all of these grades because they do get confusing. But and MX13 is basically a management executive. So it's kind of like an entry-level manager that joins...
I needed to pull the tank joke because our tank of the past used to be called AMX13.
Oh, really? I did not know that.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
It used to be an AMX13 tank.
Oh, wow.
Good to know. All right.
Yeah.
So MX13 is $3,000.
Up to $3,000.
Up to $3,000.
That number may have changed because I did get this article that is a bit dated.
Okay.
So it could be slightly more.
So what we are getting into essentially is a pay band of sorts.
Right. So this is exactly what you're talking about, a pay structure. Okay, that makes sense. Now this makes sense. And so it kind of goes all the way up. You have MX12 for assistant managers, MX
which is up to almost $6,000.
Right,
Okay.
according to this article. And then the highest that I have here is an MX9 for a director level, and that goes anywhere between 11,000 to 17,000.
Wow. 17,000.
Right, and this is monthly
cool.
salary.
Monthly salary.
Right. If you want to talk about perm sex, so this is very interesting. I tried to find out what are the pays of top leaders, and this was a bit hard to find. The most recent thing I found was basically a parliamentary conversation that happened, and the answers were given. But if you actually dig for it, it is a bit hard to find. So if anyone does have that answer, please let me know. I'd love to know what the numbers are.
So how much is a perm sec?
So
which is the highest. The permanent secretary is the highest position you can go for the civil service sector.
Right. So basically, for ministry, the head honcho is a permanent secretary. For a statutory board, it's normally like the CEO or a chairman equivalent, and they are more or less pegged at the same level
as a permanent secretary.
More or less.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So an AO, which is administrative officer, which is basically the people who are put on that league of officers at an SR9 grade. So that's again a pay band within the civil service. They're paid around 400,000 a year. And this, I need to really caveat this is 10 years ago. So this is the last number I could find.
Wait, this is 2008.
Right. So I have not been able to find a more recent number. And if you are a senior permanent secretary, or you are if you're a senior permanent secretary, you could be looking at around more than 1.5 million a year. So and I think it goes back to what we were talking about before.
In fact, it's more than 1.5 million. It's actually in 2008, it was 1.9 million.
Right.
Which means that now that we're in 2018,
that number could be much higher.
Oh my.
Right. And I think it's important. It's going to dovetail into your part, which is why are we paying people who work in government so much, right? And I hope by now I've kind of impressed my point, which is that the kind of work.
But you actually talk about the fact that the people in the civil service sector actually peg their salaries to the commercial sector. Is that correct?
The market, yeah.
So something called market competitive salaries.
Right.
We essentially it's to really try to normalize exactly what people in similar kind of organizations will be paid in the civil service sector.
Right. At that point, you're not choosing between a low-paying job and a high-paying job. You're just choosing between working towards public service or working for a private sector goal.
Right. 1.9 million in 2008. I suppose. I think recently in the parliament, they were also saying that the permanent secretary or some people in the civil service sector actually earn more than ministers in ministers, for example.
Right. I mean, the way, if you look at the pay grades, an acting minister is actually getting slightly lower than what we were just talking about.
Right.
So I could see that happening for sure.
In fact, just for kicks, maybe we can also talk about how much the different ministers are being paid as well.
Go ahead.
We know, for example, about how much our prime minister is being paid, but let's take a look about how the other ministers are paid. But before we go into that, maybe we can look at any comments or something that we can tell you. So guys, if you have any comments, please share it right now. We really want to ask the question of how much do you think a religious leader, a CEO of a charitable organization, or the prime minister should be paid?
Right.
All right. If you have these answers, just please leave a comment so that we can really discuss about it and really find out how you think and also how you feel about it.
So we're entering into the final and juicy part.
Oh yeah, how much are actually our ministers being paid? So we know that the minister is being paid about $2.2 million currently, right?
Right.
So the DPM or Deputy Prime Minister is about 1.87 million.
Right.
The MR1, I suppose, is like a senior minister of sorts. It's about 1.76 million. And then it goes down all the way to MR4, 1, 2, 3, 4. and MR4 is about 1.1 million. So the discrepancy is almost nearly about almost $1 million, I suppose.
Right.
In fact, it's twice.
So I think it's interesting. So the 2008 number I gave you was
Yeah.
before the 2011 review.
Right.
So remember, they did a huge review in 2011 based on what happened in the election year and what happened with the commission that kind of did the review. So that number that we just talked about in 2008 could be very different, not necessarily higher, actually.
I'm very sure. And what's MOS is paid? I think I suppose that's a Speaker of Parliament.
No, Minister of State.
Minister of State is
Right.
paid 770,000. The mayor of a district is paid $660,000 per annum.
Right.
And SPS, not sure what that is, but that's
Senior Parliamentary Secretary.
student parliament. Oh, you know your your political roles. 572,000. The parliamentary secretary is at 418,000. They are really pretty well paid, I would say. And I think compared to some of the political leaders in the world, I suppose that's also something, which is why there was a debate on why exactly are ministers being paid. But if they are paid to the commercial sector, they're actually under. So really, I think it's really an understanding of where are we benchmarking everyone's pay.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'll say this. I think a lot of the conversations I've had with people are not so much anger at the pay. They are more angry about distribution.
Okay.
So, and I think that's a very different question, and there's a lot of literature on this.
Sure.
I took a class in business ethics in school, and I couldn't even come to my own conclusion about whether CEOs deserve the pay that they got.
Right.
So I mean, if, for example, Singapore, touch wood, right? If, for example, Singapore's economy had a huge nightmare and the top CEO's pay slumped a lot, the prime minister would take that pay cut, right? And every minister as well. But the key issue is not why people are getting paid so high, but why is there such a big distribution? And I think that's a question that isn't really, it's a whole new can of worms. We're talking about distributive justice. We're talking about Gini coefficient.
I suppose there's also how organizations are structured. When you say, for example, if you are an executive and to aspire to be a manager, and the manager is being paid this amount, and then you're a senior manager, a director,
right,
maybe a C, or maybe some form of like a even higher director,
right,
senior, all the way to the top man. I suppose there are aspirational qualities as well as aspirational amounts of remuneration that may possibly be it.
Right. And I think something else that I've been thinking about is this whole idea of what is the culture that's created by these pays. Right. So, for example, if you think that a top civil servant or a top minister should be earning this much, what's going to happen is that in the future, if those pays ever drop, would people feel like it's not worth taking the job anymore?
But
is this creating this habit?
I suppose that question would determine, like, if there's an intention for dropping the civil service pay,
right,
there must be a parallel dynamics to, for example, the commercial sector's pay as well.
Right.
Because we're pegging. So if the commercial sector is depressed and the civil service sector is depressed, then I suppose it is something that could match itself.
So it's a huge messy issue. I think in all this research, there are certain things that I realized. Number one, that if you actually try to do your research, there's a lot of people saying a lot of things.
Right.
There are some good places like Mothership or Salary.sg that do give you a historical perspective. There's all these data online on the government. But in order to form a narrative, you kind of have to come in with your own lens. So what is your own expectation of justice? What is your own expectation of inequality? And I think those are questions that if we answer, we'll be just sharing our opinions, and we've kind of tried to peddle in facts over here.
So let me ask you, since we are coming also right to the end of this program, is what do you think should a religious leader in a top organization, or maybe a charitable CEO, or maybe the prime minister should be paid? Maybe the prime minister part, not so much. But what do you think the CEO of a charitable organization should be paid?
Again, I think if you're talking about a top charitable organization, I would pay them, I would peg it to a similar sized
organization,
private entity,
sure,
with one caveat. I would expect a slight subsidy.
Okay, sure. So let's say we compare a mid-size company
Right.
with a mid-size charitable organization, same number of people.
Right.
All right. And the mid-size mid-size company CEO is taking about 1.35 million, which was discussed earlier.
Right.
How much do you think that the charity's CEO should be paid?
I think probably
$1 million?
80%.
80%. So we are looking at about
It's very arbitrary. I'm sure that,
$900 to $1 million a month.
right.
Do you think that's acceptable?
I think so. I think especially if there are certain conditions attached to that pay, right? There's an expectation that that person brings in a certain amount of charitable donations, that that person secures a certain amount of projects. These pays are not arbitrary, right? And I think those are the kind of conversations that we need to be having. How much are we keeping people accountable to this space?
And do you also think that this same perspective could be placed also for religious leaders as well?
I think it's very different for religious leaders. I think a lot of times the design of religious organizations need to also be considered. So, for example, I know that there are certain organizations that the pay is fixed, right? And there's an overseeing board that manages all the pay. So those are things that it's again, whole new areas to explore.
Right. And in the case of a prime minister, now that we're on it, right?
Sure.
Do you think, for example, it is, like you said, an 80% off from the average, the national average of CEOs?
What do you think, Willie? You've been asking me a lot of questions. Let me flip it on you.
Good question. I personally feel that it is best meant for the job. If it takes this amount of money to attract a person of good caliber, intellect, and capability into the civil service sector,
right,
I think it's worth his weight in gold and salt.
I'll say this. The one thing I do have to comment is that no matter what the pay is, it's the culture of how we talk about it, right? The way that we hold ideas of who deserves what, about whether there is any space for redistribution. All of those things need to be dealt with compassion.
Right.
And I think a lot of times we tend to say, the best man for the job, but screw everyone else. And I don't think that's nice.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times in a country like ours where everyone basically lives next to each other, we're so dense, having that kind of contempt is not going to help anyone. And I think hopefully this conversation kind of gets us in that position where people realize that there's a lot more information to deal with. There's a lot of data that we could not find.
Exactly.
That I hope we can find in the future. If people find it, that they'll share it with us. But basically, the character and the attitude is really important.
I totally agree. So, all right.
That's kind of all we have.
Thanks for joining us today, guys, and I really appreciate it. You guys survived with us for almost 1 hour, 20 minutes.
Exactly. And if you've missed any of this, we have a podcast on Apple Podcasts that you can subscribe to. And if you like it, do give your ratings and do share with your friends. We're definitely hoping to start more conversations with this.
So, all right. That's it for tonight, guys. Thanks for joining us. Maybe we'll see you the next time again with another cool topic. All right.
See ya.
See you guys. Good night.